Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel. My name is Pastor Siri. I'm a Lutheran pastor and a spiritual seeker. And today we're talking about the rebelliousness of joy. Take a listen. So for the last few years in my journaling, as well as listening to many other spiritual teachers, there's a common theme that keeps coming up over and over again, and it is remember joy, remember joy, remember joy. It's almost as if our friends on the other side, whether they're ancestors or whether they're the spirits of the land or whether they are our guardian angels, God, whatever you want to call it, this message keeps coming, and every single time I hear it, my reaction is, oh yeah. The world can be such a heavy place to live in. Literally, it feels like there's an oppressive energy that's sort of keeping us in some ways depressed and anxious and cynical and feeling like we're the only one. And sometimes I almost feel as if that energy is on purpose, that energy is being promoted through the news and through many other avenues as a way to make us feel isolated, afraid, and divided. And oftentimes, with all of the ability we have to know what's going on in the world, it can definitely feel like if you're a compassionate, empathetic person, then you're going to be overwhelmed, exhausted, and your heart's going to be broken for everything bad that's happening. The problem with that is that can be disempowering, and that can bring us to a point where we feel stuck and trapped, and we stop advocating for ourselves and others, or when we do, it comes from a place of anger and us against them. And this is where that message keeps coming back of joy. So I recently learned something really neat, and basically when they hooked people up to I forget what it is. It reads the vibration and the frequency that you're emitting. Isn't that interesting? And if you think of it as a V shape, the lower the vibration was, the more people were emanating feelings like apathy and shame and guilt and fear. And then as it moved up the inverted triangle, the feelings began to get more expansive, feelings of compassion, peace, empathy, and joy. So when people are in that expansive energy, it not only feels good, but it is either a marker of healing or it helps to promote healing. It's sort of like a buoy that brings you along so that you can deal and maybe work through some of those other darker feelings that we all have. So there's something powerful to talking about joy as being like a lifesaver, one of those life preserves that you put on that keeps you buoyed up in the chaotic waters of the world. I often think we believe that joy and humor and playfulness is frivolous, or a person who really cared about the world, a real justice warrior, wouldn't have time for that. And actually, I think it's the opposite. I think that if we do not take the time to mutually, personally, collectively nurture joy, we can get sucked back into this dense field, which can potentially take even our most well-meaning actions and not let them be quite as successful because they're not always coming from a healed place or a compassionate place. There's something about joy that's healing, that lifts us up literally in our spirit. You can tell the difference between people who have a great belly laugh together and someone who's like laughing at someone else. There's a huge difference. Good humor, when people are laughing with each other and together and it's light and it's happy, it's healing. It makes you feel better. One of the things that I love to do is look at little videos of baby bunnies and really pretty much animals in general, being cute, doing sort of funny little weird things. It brings me joy and it lightens things for me as well. In fact, sometimes I have to list out the things that bring me joy and remember to do them, because it can be hard to remember in our daily lives. We are busy, we're overwhelmed, we're overstimulated, and we can get sucked into that cynicism and sucked into that powerlessness that I truly believe is intentional to some degree. So there's a rebelliousness to joy. If the world is telling you there's nothing you can do, this world sucks, it's an awful place to be, you can't change it, then one of the best things you can do is laugh and remember what makes you feel like this world is worth living. And that can actually help to bring not only just a better feeling within yourself, but that spreads out into the world. Recently, I had lunch with a friend, and I've realized that sitting and having lunch with friends is one of the things that really gives me joy, long-lasting joy. And so I've been trying to do it more and more, remembering to reach out and schedule that in. And as I left, I went to the grocery store and bought some groceries, and I felt like I was just super friendly and super nice to all of the staff because I was in such a good mood. It's such a simple little thing, but I can imagine how that might ripple out. Whereas when I'm in a bad mood, which we're all allowed to be in bad moods, I can sometimes send that energy out as well. But if I can provide an antidote for a constant stream of bad moods by infusing myself with a little bit of joy, then how powerful that can be, just not only for relieving the suffering in my day, but for potentially relieving the suffering that other people are experiencing. So I do want to talk about one piece here, because when we hear things like, you should be joyful, you should sometimes we hear it in that way, and that's not helpful. Anytime we hear anything as a should, as a command, that can naturally bring up sort of a response of like, great, another thing for me to do, another thing that I have to do. No, it's not like that. This is like medicine for us, to work on playfulness, to work on joyfulness, to work on laughter, to cultivate that and nurture that in our life is not frivolous. It is a wonderful thing to do, and it's medicinal. So you can think of it as like taking a vitamin. But at the same time, I do not want you to hear this as supporting spiritual bypassing. If you haven't heard of spiritual bypassing, that's where you take a belief system and you hope that it's going to magically fix an issue. So spiritually bypassing, you have this issue, you have this struggle, you have this pain, and you're hoping that with your belief system, if you meditate hard enough, pray hard enough, believe strong enough, that you should be able to just loop right over the problem. And you hear this all the time. I don't care what religion or spiritual background you come from, this can be in all of them. People who say, well, if you have enough faith, if you pray hard enough, if you do this, then X, Y, and Z should happen naturally. And then if it doesn't, you're to blame, rather than the vast complexity of the world. When we have problems in life, the most healing thing we can do is look it in the face and acknowledge it and see it for what it is. If we're having bad emotions in our day, in our body, we don't just go, well, I need to be joyful and try to spiritually bypass and try to keep things happy all the time. No, that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about refusing to look at what's going on in your life or refusing to look at the bad in the world. We're talking about a different kind of way. When we do have bad moods, when we do have strong emotions, the most important thing for us is to fully look at them and ask, why are you here, my friend? What are you here to teach me? What is going on in me that needs to be looked at? And that can be scary and hard work. And sometimes we need help to navigate through it. But when we do that, then we can release that. And it's like all of the pain and trauma and struggle and hurts that we've had in our life are like weights holding us down. And every time we release one through healthy looking at it and discovering and understanding ourselves better, we're able to release that. We naturally get lighter, and there's more room for that joy and that peace. But at the same time, joy can actually give us the strength to look at something and release some of those hurts and burdens. That's one reason why comedians know the power of humor to talk about actually really difficult issues. Really, really skilled comedians will be able to bring up a difficult topic that normally gets people really, really uncomfortable. And if they gracefully can use a little self-deprecating or we're all in this together humor, they can actually bring forward shadow sides of our culture and within all of us in a way that has people laughing at themselves. And in that laughter, they're more aware and they're able to possibly begin a process of releasing something that was keeping them held down. That's powerful medicine when it is employed correctly. So I hope you're hearing this for what it is, an invitation to, however imperfectly, however erratically, give yourself permission to cultivate joy in your life. Maybe take a minute to write down 5 things that bring you some level of joy, that make you smile at least, or when you do those activities, you feel sort of a long-lasting feeling of gladness, kind of like when I go out and meet my girlfriends for lunch. And I want to share one thing with you, one last story. A year ago, I was in Mount Shasta on a spiritual retreat, and we went to a sound healing. And that was where we got to lie down, and this woman was playing instruments, and it was very beautiful. But she was also an artist. And all along the walls were gigantic murals. And as I looked closer to one of the murals, I noticed that it was all these like little creatures, like little alien bug creatures in this cute landscape. And they were adorable, and they were all just playing. And I looked at one in particular, and I just started laughing. I couldn't stop laughing every time I looked at it. I loved it so much. And the artist came up to me and she goes, "Which one are you seeing?" And I kind of pointed it out. And she said, "Do you know what this mural is?" And she said, "This mural came to me, this vision came to me of these little creatures whose entire existence was to play. It's their life, it's their job is to play, to remind anyone who thinks of them, anyone who taps into them, to remember that you can be lighthearted. You're allowed to have joy. You're allowed to have giggles and smiles, even in the midst, especially in the midst of everything that is going on." I loved this little critter so much that I went home and I drew a picture of it. So here's the little friend that I couldn't stop laughing at. And he goes, "Neener, neener, neener, neener." That's what he does. That's what he does every day, right? That's his existence, is to play. And it just brings me so much joy to see this picture. And that is exactly, I mean, imagine if there was some dimension out there of little critters whose entire life was joy. And their entire existence was to remind us humans in the heaviness of this earth, you are allowed joy. And if more and more of us allow ourselves joy, cultivate joy, spread the joy like a contagion, it just may offer healing and a shift in the earth's vibration toward a more collective, joyful place. Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful? It's worth a try, for your sake and for mine. That's all I have for you today. If you found this video helpful, I do encourage you to comment, to like, to share, to subscribe. That helps me. It's a good energy exchange for receiving, to give back to me as well. Otherwise, I will hopefully see you next time. Bye-bye.